Let's take a look at what we're doing this first week in the course. We are in Module 1. Module 1 looks at the chemistry of life, so we're looking at biological chemistry. The overview will give you a brief overview of what we are covering this week. You'll also see a list of objectives, and then you'll see a list of activities. It's always good to have that checklist and to go back to it to make sure that you've completed all of the items. The first thing in our activities are the introductions. This will be a discussion post where you will introduce yourself to the other students. This shows you what you want to include in your post about yourself. When you're ready to make your post, you will select this reply button. When you click on that, it will open a box. You'll put in your information here. If you want to include a picture, you can do that here. And once you have what you want in there, you will click this reply button and it will post it. Next, you have your learning materials. You'll have a brief overview of those learning materials. You'll have a very brief weekly video lecture. You have the assigned materials here. You will have 2 chapters, chapter 1 and 2 in the OpenStax online textbook. You also have a series of short videos here. You'll need them for your assignments. There's also several links here on how to cite sources. You will be required to cite in APA 7th edition throughout the course, and so you want to make sure that you know how to do that. So those links are here. Now this next section talks about the course project overview. What I really want to do is to go and do an entire video just on the course project. So I'm going to skip past this for right now. However, some of the assignments you will be doing this week will tie into this course project. Your week 1 discussion will look at protein folding and the use of artificial intelligence in determining the proper folding of a protein. So first, it gives you a little bit of background of what you're doing. There's a game called Fold It that allows you to try to figure out how proteins fold and to learn a little bit about protein folding. Proteins have very, very diverse functions in living organisms. It's the 3-dimensional shape of the protein that really dictates how it works. If a protein isn't working properly, it's typically because that protein did not fold correctly. The ultimate lack of the proper 3D structure is what would compromise the function of that protein. So it gives you a little bit of background. Now all of this would have been stuff that would have been covered in the chapter and in some of those videos. Down here it's leading you through your initial post. So remember, this is a discussion. You're going to have an initial post that you're going to submit by Thursday at 3 a.m. Then you're also going to have a reply. These 4 steps just go with that initial post. The first step here, you're going to learn about protein. These are 3 links that were actually in the learning materials. Then you're going to play Fold It. You will go to this link, you will download the program, you will create a free account. When it asks you to choose the type of account, you're going to choose education. As you go through these tutorials, you will see on the screen that a flask or a beaker will fill up, indicating that you have finished that particular topic. When you finish those, you'll take a screenshot of the full beakers to show that you have done them. If it doesn't show all of them, you might need to take several screenshots. If you want to do more than is listed here, you certainly can, but you're not required to do more than that. In part 3, you'll watch this video explanation of a paper about this other protein folding program called AlphaFold. So this is a database, and you can go to the database following this link. When you get to that database, you're going to search for any protein within the database. If I put in a protein here, I click on that protein, and if I scroll down, you can see the structure viewer. You're going to type in your protein, click it when it gives you a list, and then come down here to structure viewer. The other thing it's asking you to do in there is to describe the function of the protein, and you can see that up here. If the protein you selected doesn't list a biological function, then you might want to select a different protein. You're going to take a screenshot of the structure of the protein, and then you're going to record what it says about the function of that protein. And then the last step is the reflect and post. In addition to the screenshots, you are going to write a 300 to 500 word summary of your experience using these 2 programs, the Fold It and the AlphaFold. As you're writing your reflection, you want to make sure that you address each of the questions that are listed here. You also want to make sure that you integrate information from the learning materials using in-text citations and end citations. Go back to that link that talks about how to properly cite. If we come up to look at the rubric for this, you can see where the points are coming from. So this is another good way to provide a checklist to make sure that you've got everything in there that needs to be in there. You can see how many points each of those things is worth. After you do your discussion for the first week, you have your first week assignment. Now this first week assignment will be something that will eventually go into your course project. You can read a little bit about the overview here. these videos go back to the learning materials is you are going to create a slide deck. You can either use PowerPoint or Google Slides. You're going to create 6 slides at least. These slides are only going to have images, and then you are going to narrate the slides. So you're going to tell your viewer what they are looking at in these images, but you're not going to put a bunch of text on there. Now you can use text to cite the images at the end of the slides. You want to give credit when you use images from other places. There's a link here to show you how to properly cite those images. You can have a slide at the end that shows where your images came from, and that would include text. But everything else in here should just be images. For each of the macromolecule groups, which would be proteins, lipids, carbohydrates, nucleic acids, you will have a slide. And that slide will show what that particular molecule is like. And then in your narration, you'll talk about that molecule. You'll just have a picture of it in the slide, but then you'll narrate the slide and include these things. What elements do we see in this type of molecule? How are they arranged in the molecule? And then why did you pick this particular image to represent this type of molecule? Then you're also going to have a slide that will look at this concept of small biological molecules that are used in medicine. One of the videos talked about these small biological molecules that are used in medicine. So you'll have an image that represents that, and again, you will narrate that slide. If you go back and look at the drug biomolecule video, it talked about 4 different classes of drug biomolecules. You'll have an image that will represent that in either 1 or 2 slides. You are going to narrate the information that you find about these particular medicinal compounds. And it's asking you to use an AI tool to actually search to find out information about the medicinal compounds. There's a link here that talks about how to frame your prompt. So it's teaching you what is a good way to go into something like ChatGPT and get a very specific answer to a question that you have. You're going to ask ChatGPT to give you information about these medicinal molecules. Once you have your set of slides, so you'll have about 6 slides, and then you'll also have one at the end that has your references. You want to then also narrate your slide deck. This link here will provide you instructions on how to do that. Once you have all of that, upload that file, and down below we can see the rubric that goes over what's expected in that assignment and the points that are associated with each. The second assignment for this first week is also going to tie into your course project, where we will be looking at medicines that have been derived from either plants or fungi. First up here, there's an overview of this assignment, and then down below we have step-by-step instructions. In your first step, you're going to go to this website where you will learn about how Taxol, which is a compound that was derived from the Pacific yew, is used to treat cancer. Then you're going to find a particular FDA-approved drug that is not Taxol, some other drug, that was originally derived from a naturally occurring compound that we find in either plants or fungi. You will provide this information about the drug. So what is its name? What's the scientific name of the plant or fungus that we got it from? What's the structure of the compound? What's its function within the plant? So we're not asking what does it do when we take it as a medicine. We're asking what did it do for the plant or the fungus originally. Then we can look at what is it used for in humans or animals medically. What is the cellular target that this drug is working on in humans or animals? And then you're going to look for a scientific research paper on that particular drug that has been published within the past 5 years. When you're looking at a scientific research paper, we call this a primary source. A primary source is going to have data in it as opposed to a secondary source, which might be a review article. We want a primary source where there's actual data from an original research project in it. Now you can also use an AI tool to search for the drug if you want and to find information. But again, you always, when you're using anything with AI, it's up to you to make sure that what you are providing back is accurate. Keep in mind that AI isn't perfect, and sometimes it will give you incorrect information. So you need to also vet that information to make sure that it's correct. After you've got your information, you are going to create a 3 to 5 minute podcast that describes this information. And you can see here a list of items that you want to make sure that you include in your podcast. When you submit this, you want to submit the recording, but you also want to list your sources in the APA format. There's also a link down here that gives you an example of a short podcast. And then down below, you can see the rubric and how the points are assigned for each of the items that's required in this assignment. Your third and final assignment for week 1 is to submit the template for your project website. So this is mainly to make sure that you have all your settings correct so that when I go to grade the final project, we don't have any issues with me having access to it. So you don't really have to load anything into it. You just have to create that so that I can go in and make sure that I can open it and see it. So what it's having you do is to use this template to go in, create your website. Make sure you have the settings set the way that it describes it here. If not, I'll get an error message. So this is just kind of getting ahead of it so that at the end, we don't have issues with me not being able to get into your website. If you want to put some of your slide deck in there this week, you're welcome to do that, but you don't really need to. You just need to create that main page of your website and then set those permissions correctly so that I'll be able to see it. So that gets you through all of the assignments for week 1. Again, I will put together a video that talks specifically about the project. If you have any questions about the individual assignments for the week, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I hope you have a great week.